song about a giraffe would go, it's been a long, long year. We get along well here, and that's because we're way up high. Oh, no one else sees us on the plane we are, but we're seeing eye to eye. 'Cause no one ever told me that I can't fly. In this giraffe life. There you go, giraffe life.
I love that.
See what I was doing there?
Folks, before we start this episode, if you could do one thing, would you please hit that subscribe button? It really helps us out. Oh man, well, kick those tires and start that very fake fire. We're back, and we're camping in the new year, and what a great way, well, in fact, no better way than to launch with one of the most important people with K in their name. Of course, I'm not speaking about the founder of Circle K, nor am I talking about the founder of Kmart, nor am I talking about John K, the cartoonist, or am I talking about Coach K. There's so many Ks, but in fact, John K, musician, is with us here in the fake campfire studio today. He is an enormously successful singer, songwriter. I would call him a poet of our time, and certainly the most amazing guitarist on this podcast right now in this episode. So please give a warm virtual welcome to our friend John K. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, do you like? Is that adequate? Do you feel that adequately? There are a lot of people with K in their names. You know, like this is something you've probably had to wrestle with.
When we chose the name, which seemed to be the one that stuck, we knew it was going to be a long road to fight to be on even the first page of Google. You know, when you type in John K, you get John Krasinski. You know, the cartoonist. We're still battling, but I think I'm edging him out.
That's going to go to the Supreme Court, right?
I mean, from what I've heard, he's not the best. Who else we got that's up there with me? Yeah, you know, it's a long road for a John K. But we're gonna stick to it. That feels like the name that is gonna take us to the promised land, and however long it takes to be on the first thing that pops up on Google when you type it. I'm in for the long.
Ultimately, that's why you got into music, right? Was for the Google. You did it for the Google ranking. That's pretty much why anyone does it.
That's it. Yeah, that was the only motivation.
Yeah, I figured as much. Well, you know what? If it's any consolation, there are at least 4.5 million people on Spotify who think you are the real John K. So, you know what? And you got a blue check mark too, right? So, I mean, you're emotionally validated in life.
Yeah, that was another big day, big moment. The blue check mark.
That's
a lot of people chase that for a long time.
Dude, it's a real thing. I haven't gotten my blue check mark, and I'm in therapy about it, but we'll get to it eventually. But I think we'll get to this later, but I'm sure there's I think biblical precedent too, and there's some, you know, in faith, you know, man cannot derive his value solely from his blue check mark, right? There's other variables, you know.
What book is that in?
I don't know. It's actually a more obscure sort of apocryphalic book. I've not found it, but it's there. I assure you, it's sort of it's there.
The Book of Ryan.
That's right,
yeah.
Book of Ryan. That's right. I've been living life off that. Well, no one wants to hear about the Book of Ryan. My Spotify followers are just slightly smaller than yours right now. For now. So I want to start off. What is on John K's playlist? I'm always curious right now because you have this amazing taste too in classic rock, and like you appreciate the oldies and the goodies, or what I consider the greatest generation of music. But what do you blast right now on your playlist? And you can give me a couple too, if it's like a workout lit mix, or if it's chilling, or if it's just, you know, in the car stuck in traffic.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a lot of different phases that we go through. I think there's music that I listen to now that inspires me to create, and then there is stuff that I listen as the foundation of why I wanted to be in music. And then there's guilty pleasure things that I'm just like, wow, that is just incredibly done. So there's a lot of different reasons that I think we all listen to music, and especially me and my team, we're constantly consuming music every single day. We're sending, yo, you hear how they did this transition and this. So growing up, I lived in South Florida. Grew up in Fort Lauderdale, down in Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach, Boca, kind of all over that area, and we'd always be on the boat. So it was Bob Marley, the Eagles, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Beatles, some Donny Hathaway sprinkled in there, but that was more like, you wouldn't really listen to that on the boat. That'd be more after I got home. I used to just blast music in my room and try to sing like Donny Hathaway, which is impossible because he's probably the greatest singer to ever live. So yeah, it was a lot of Bonnie Raitt. I know we talked about Bonnie Raitt a little earlier. I remember my dad used to grab a guitar and sing "Leaving on a Jet Plane" when I was really little, and I used to take him seriously and think he was actually going to leave.
So to this day, when you hear John Denver, it actually, I'm assuming it's the John Denver version, not the Peter, Paul, and Mary, but it leaves you breathless and a little emotionally scarred?
The original, or, the version from Armageddon, I think they redid.
Oh, yeah, so okay, so I think that was a medley mashup of Steve Buscemi and the rest of the gang.
Yes. Leaving on it.
Oh, he was great. Gosh, he was fantastic. I know. That's a great song. It's so heartbreaking though. That song is so sad.
If you take it literally, yeah, I thought he was going somewhere. That song, I don't have a strong, a good emotional response to. And what's the other song? That I hate, and I don't say that word a lot, but it's from The Lion King.
Just can't wait to be king.
Can you feel love tonight?
Oh.
I remember, this is like a deep, dark memory, but I remember my dad was single at the time, and I remember as a child looking out of my bedroom window and seeing him kissing a girlfriend or something, and I was like, no, and the song was playing, and I was like, no. As a 5-year-old, you want your...
Which version was it? The Timon and Pumbaa narration, or was it the Elton John version?
The Elton John version, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a beautiful song. I'm sorry that was ruined for you. That's
I know.
That's tough.
What was the original question? Okay, music I'm listening to now.
Yeah.
If you haven't ever listened to John Ryan, he has a side artist project called John the Blind. Phenomenal. He was one of the main writers for One Direction. He's got Maroon 5 cuts. He is probably up there with my favorite producers. But his side project, John the Blind, is incredible. Who else do I look for? This is for inspiration now. Doing if we could reach that level, that would be amazing. Obviously, Ed Sheeran's going to go down as one of the greats here as far as how to craft a song and how to release music. That's another huge thing now that always inspires me and impresses me, to see the goals that artists set for themselves and how quickly they're able to turn around projects that they believe in. Because, you can take 5 years, or it can be a year. And I always wonder, I guess, internally, am I sacrificing more if I do albums quicker, but I love these 12 songs and I want to put them out? So that it's an art form to kind of being decisive enough to piece together a body of work that you feel like is a representation of you, that you feel like deserves to be out, and then opening yourself up to a new window later to work on another body of work. It's just a lot of mental gymnastics that go into it. So when I see somebody like Ed Sheeran, who you can tell his whole life he had this amazing mentality and ability to write, record, and release. And he always said that it's really, really good practice to, even if you're not fully 100% on the song, to push it as close to the finish line as you can. Because it might surprise you. You don't know. And so it's because it's really easy. I know I write a ton of music, and it's easy to say, it's not that good. Just like, we can write a better one tomorrow and just let it go. But there's been songs that have stuck around, and we said, like, In Case You Missed Me on the last album, that was a dead demo for a long time, and one of my buddies was like, I feel like that song had something, and then we kind of re-looked at it, reworked it a little bit, and it became one of my favorite songs on the whole project. So it's just really cool to challenge yourself to write, record, finish production, and challenge yourself to release it. And now guilty pleasure artists, there's this little fairy princess, she's from another place, and her name is Aurora, and her music is sonic perfection, Swedish, the top of the Swedish production mountain. It truly is incredible music, and it's to get lost in something that is just so well done in her own world, and she's so different and unique in herself. Aurora's fantastic, and obviously Yeba is one of the greatest singers. She kind of lives in that guilty pleasure category, and there's so much great music now. I have a ton of respect for.
See, I was looking for more like, do you like Wham, or is there a, Wang Chung? Is there some really bad 80s or like 90s, What's Going On? You remember that song? Some really, or Backstreet Boys, which are advancing in years now. I'm a bit alarmed when I read the ages of. I saw the Friends reunion. I mean, you and I are about the same age, I think. And when I saw the Friends reunion, and I saw, oh wow, the friends that I grew up with now are manifesting clear signs of their mortality. And I went, oh man, wonder how the Backstreet Boys are and stuff now. I think they got to be like in their late 40s now, or 50 maybe.
So, fun fact: AJ McLean cut and recorded and just released a song that I wrote with a couple friends.
Dude, you're peripherally related to the Backstreet Boy.
I never thought it would happen, and it was such a cool call that I didn't expect to come in. And they're like, AJ loves this song. He wants to record it, and he's cutting it, and he's going to put it out next month as his lead single. He's going to do music again. And I was like, huh?
Wow.
Okay. Cool.
Now, did you tell him, were you a Backstreeter, or were you an NSyncer, or were you like one of the random offshoots like O-Town or 98 Degrees?
No, I was a Backstreeter that became an NSyncer.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Controversial. So,
yeah, that's very, wow.
I think I fell in love with the boy band thing through Backstreet, and then quickly realized, like, Justin is so dope, and then kind of jumped over, and then to this day I like, because there is a lot of Backstreet that I really, really liked, and if I'm being honest with my 10-year-old self, but my manager, my whole crew is like tells me that I'm crazy for that, and that NSync was so much better, but we weren't even friends at that point in time, so they can't tell me what to do.
No, and I'm with you. I was more of a Backstreeter solely because Max Martin, right? He's the legend.
He's the Tom Brady. He's the Tom Brady of.
Yeah, Tom Brady of that. And what if Max Martin wrote a Tom Brady song? Can you imagine how powerful that would be?
Yeah, but Tom would have to sing it.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Anybody could pull off a song called "Goat." It would be Max.
That's right. It'd be awesome. I want it that way is still an enigma to me, because they state so many times how they want it that way, but I don't know which way they want it. It's sort of akin to an R.I.P. I was a huge fan of Meatloaf, but he said he would do anything for love, but he wouldn't do that. And in my younger self, I wasn't quite sure what that was. So I enjoyed the lyrical majesty of the Backstreet Boys, but I just I don't know. I wanted larger than life. These lyrics made no sense, but they were so epic. And Millennium was just on, on repeat for me, and I was very proud of it. I was a huge Backstreet Boy. That pop sensation was fantastic, and I just didn't get into NSYNC, And then you're right. Then Justin started like really taking off, and then I found out he was a scratch golfer, I think, and I said, mad respect. So now I've probably similar to you,
based on his golf career.
Yeah, well, yeah, based on golf career. And then, but also, dude, who didn't love O-Town? All or Nothing. I mean, gosh,
Yeah,
that was
that's a good song.
epic. You know,
Yeah.
Liquid Dreams. um, that's
You know, a lot of that world was in Orlando. So where I live now. I live kind of in the graveyard of boy bands past. Like music was huge in Orlando when boy bands were such a huge thing, but now it's all left with just the hangover of older execs thinking they know what's going on in the music industry based on the success they had with boy bands in the 90s, and nothing ever now it's kind of this grungy, nobody really knows what to do in Orlando. There's some scenes and there's definitely some homies making incredible music in Orlando, but you know, it's just funny to see how many people are like, yeah, I was a part of Backstreet. I'm like, what? When?
That's so funny. Well, that's so cool. You're working with a Backstreet Boy. I want to touch on something you mentioned. You mentioned Ed Sheeran kind of changing the game and music distribution, etc. Can you talk a little bit about, in your, relatively, young career too, how it has changed or how you've watched it change? Because obviously, as we were growing up, we had a monumental shift with Napster and the digitization of music, and now it's and I'm a huge fan of albums, and it's interesting because I hear a lot of people talk about projects and songs and just regular distribution, like you said. So, how did Ed Sheeran kind of change things? And then, what do you think? How has that affected your plans for? Or maybe a better way to put it, what's the right way to distribute music right now if you want to make it with everything going on?
It's organized chaos and flooding the scene in a way that is still well thought out. Everything is moving really, really fast, and I'm aware of that. And I think Ed got in at the perfect time. I think it was a timing thing. Obviously, his quality was there, and you have to make sure that you establish for yourself a consistent bar that you say, if I release something, it's going to be at this level, and then you push that up and up and up as you grow. But I think he really won because he flooded the scene and didn't rely on any single to make a career for him. I think that he was able to do a great job with branding and just continue to push and release incredible music that touched on a bunch of different genres, but that was always Ed. And I think it just goes to his work ethic. So I've tried to carry that over and continue to write in bunches and numbers and get songs. I mean, that is our product. That's the ability to connect. And you miss a thousand songs you don't release are emotional opportunities that you miss to connect to somebody or help somebody through something. So my approach has always just been, if it feels real to me, I think somebody will also feel it on the other end. And if the quality is at what I expect it to be and it feels like a true representation to me, there's no point in me being precious about that and not releasing it. And that's why I've wanted to be an album artist as opposed to, just chase flash in the pan singles. And I think it's a combination of both. I think it's really, really hard to stay relevant in a time where Spotify's uploading north of 40, 50,000 songs a day. And to stay in front of people has never been easier and never been more challenging because it's so accessible and because our attention spans are destroyed. I have just made a commitment to the music very early on, and I think that that's the best place that I could have ever started. And if I could cut out, everything else and just work on music, my vocal, my live performance, and just making that better, that's all I would do. But I'm happy to get it out there and connect with people too, because that's, it's kind of selfish for me to be in my comfort place, which is writing with people that I love, being home with my family, bringing these songs to life, and it was all inside of quarantine, so I had the excuse not to have to go out there, not to go on the road, and I got kind of comfortable in that. But that's why I got into music in the first place, was because I loved performing. I loved what I was learning how to do and what I continue to learn and push myself how to do, little moments, and I love how it makes other people feel, at least the feedback that I get. And so it seems like a good thing for both sides. Music distribution is really, really tricky right now because there is no right way. Before, a couple of years ago even, it used to be very, don't let a bit too much of your song go out before the song comes out. You want to save the hook and make it have more impact when the song comes out and people can hear it for the first time. It was don't leak it. And now with TikTok and pre-saves and it's like leak it as far in advance as you can. Put it 3 months out in advance. Put the chorus out there, every bit of the song. Do it over and over and over, 1 million TikToks, and get as many pre-saves as you can. And so it's always changing, and I think it's always changed, and there's always been a tough thing for the time. So you just got to embrace it and go with it. And I'm just going to continue to write music. I'm just starting to kind of lean into the TikTok thing and play the game a little bit.
There you go. Okay, so how do you balance that? So, because you're an album guy, and albums seem to be out of vogue right now. From an economic standpoint, how do you balance making your art, authentic art, true to yourself with albums, but recognizing that chasing the single seems to be the economic way to keep going in a world that rewards singles, right? So how do you blend those two? How do you balance art and marketing as a musician?
You combine the approach. You work on the album, and you'll feel that certain songs in that process will raise their hand, and you can just coin them singles. You still have the album in mind, so you're not led by singles, but you are dripping the album out, 3, 4, maybe 5 records. So you have these. It makes a huge difference too, because we did it both ways, right? So if I go back to the first album, Love and Everything Else, If We Never Met had already gone platinum. It already blew us all away, and it's the reason that we're probably talking. It's the reason that I'm able to continue. We got really, really lucky with a great song that connected immediately. So we had our moment. And then we followed that up with a couple more singles, and then we put it all together. And at the time, it felt like this isn't the album I hoped it would be, because it felt a little more single-led, and it didn't feel like I had started at the beginning and thought this whole thing through. It was like, okay, well, we got this one and this one and this one, and they all seem to be working, so let's continue to work, and let's put them all together in a little project. So I had a little issue even calling it an album. I wanted to call it a mixtape. I wanted to call it, I don't know, the debut album didn't feel right. Looking back, it was the debut album because it had the debut single, which was If We Never Met, the one that finally connected. And then, so that album has, over 300 million streams collectively because of If We Never Met, and Parachute is now really starting to go, and other songs from that first album. So then I was like, I'm going to be an album artist. All right, we're going to think about this album, we're going to do camps, we're going to dive in. And we pieced together this whole project, and then we kind of just put it out without really, we had a single with everything, and then a couple weeks later, In Case You Missed Me was the lead single on the album, and we kind of just put the whole thing out within a month. And if you compare the two now, that approach didn't work. And the people that have heard that music loves it and will say, you're underrated, or why isn't this music out there? I think it was just an oversight on my need to want to be an album artist and just to put this whole project out, and then it's just going to work. But it didn't have quite the visibility on it because it didn't have the time to do the single focus where, you focus the single. It has better chance, one song has better chance of really using the algorithm and getting on different playlists and growing organically and finding its way, then if you put a whole bunch of songs on there, some will naturally just kind of get lost in the shuffle.
No, for sure. So let me ask you this: so you still believe that you can do albums and do fine? It's just blending the two together. It's using singles to market, because I know that was how they did it in the olden days, back in the warehouse, Sam Goody, Tower Records. You go out and you'd release singles, but you can still do albums and make it.
Yeah, I think it's just single driven, but
Yep.
there really is nothing like getting lost in a body of work, and having those personality records that are deeper cuts that you'd never really intended to be a single, but that is a good reflection of you as an artist. And those likely, more than not, became my favorite songs on records, and were the reasons that I would fall in love with artists, is because they had those songs that had no reason to be on the record, but the artist, you could tell, just liked this open, sometimes nonsensical, just art, and I think albums give you an opportunity to do that. And if everything was just a single, you wouldn't have the opportunity to really get to know the personality of the artist.
Absolutely. All right, we can since we are both caving and giving into TikTok a little bit, we can make a little TikTok clip here. John K, what is your songwriting process?
My songwriting process is be the dumbest person in the room. That's step number one. Always be the dumbest person in the room, meaning I will surround myself with brilliant people, and we will go at it. We will laugh, we'll cry, we'll throw ideas around until something sticks. And the songwriting process for me is a beautiful challenge, and if I cry in the session, it probably means it's good.
I love that. Could we do a little mock, could you show me an example? If I threw out something like, let's do a song about giraffes, is that how it works? We just throw out a subject and then you're just like, hey Ryan, what do you think about this?
A song about a giraffe. A song about a giraffe would go, it's been a long, long year. We get along well here, and that's because we're way up high. Oh, no one else sees us on the plane we are, but we're seeing eye to eye. 'Cause no one ever told me that I can't fly. In this giraffe life. There you go, giraffe life.
I love that.
See what I was doing there?
Honestly, we have something there. Now, walk me the process. Would I get a co-writing credit on that since I came up with giraffe?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Look at
absolutely.
that. Boom.
It's really whoever's in the room. So usually we'll have a producer cooking, and maybe he'll come up with some cool chord progression while me and another writer are just sitting there kind of going through the early stages of writing is usually therapy. So, it really is. And sometimes we'll talk for hours and get all this stuff out, and then there will always be that little thing like, what did you just say? Could that be something? And then let's go to Cheap Sunglasses, for example. The true story of that song is we got in a room, a couple friends, and the producer had this new pair of Ray-Bans, and one of the writers was like, man, I almost bought those. Those are so fire. I had them in my cart, and I couldn't do it because every single time I buy a really nice pair of sunglasses, I lose them almost immediately.
Absolutely.
And somebody else goes, could that be something? And one of the guys was like, I only buy cheap sunglasses 'cause I know that I lose them sooner or later, or lately, I can't keep anything, can't keep you. And we were like, that is fire. Let's write that song right now.
Boom! Look at that, and that's so true because I have lost 6 pairs of Oakleys, which, factoring in inflation too, I've lost thousands of dollars, and so now I do buy cheap sunglasses because I can't have nice things.
And then that's a natural first line, right? And then you just put melody to it. The more you do it, the easier, I guess well, I don't know. It's always tricky, but that becomes the language that you speak in, So once you latch yourself to, if we're gonna just stay on this chord progression, there's only so many places you can go with it. So having the is it working on nice things? As I break them, or I take them, yeah. Na 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 na. I don't know. You find your little path. We call it a shape, and so we'll throw down melodies, and we'll feel like that feels like a really good shape. Now, what are we trying to say? But the best lines come out together the first time because lyric and melody they met, they liked each other, they got along, they got married, and they're stuck together forever.
I love that. Do you feel that there would be any practical use for someone who can do an air flugelhorn? I used to call it an air trumpet, but I was told by an actual instrumentalist that I had more of a trombone flugelhorn, and I should try and really close out that niche.
Yeah, TikTok. That's a great place to try it out. You should just duet all sorts of.
I can do the Godfather theme if you want. If you want a note of that.
Please,
Let me get warmed up here. Like. A little rusty there, but
it's better than I thought. I think you might have something.
Or we do.
Yeah. No, you got it. You go start a TikTok. Totally separate TikTok. Okay, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take every Disney song, every old song, everything that could connect, and you're just gonna sit in that exact position and do in that exact scene under the fern, and you could call it, a flugelhorn and a fern, and it would probably work.
Or how about bugling and flugeling with Ryan Bethea, and just scrap this whole camping thing, and then I'll just do John K songs too, and
Beautiful.
There you go.
Right? I'm in. I'm all day. I love it.
And I listened to a lot the other day, and I was like, I need to get the air trumpet down for that. So we'll work on that for our follow up. We can do a collab. We'll get in the studio sometime. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you want to help us out, and we're confident you do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube channel. And if you ever feel like just listening to these, you can check us out on all major podcast streaming platforms by just searching for I Went Camping With. And there, you should also subscribe. Thanks again, folks.